Welcome to a world where even the ugliest, most worn-out coins could secretly be worth a small fortune. That rusty old Washington quarter you almost threw away? It might just be worth over $300,000. And today we're revealing 10 bad-condition quarters that collectors would fight to own. These aren't shiny or perfect. Some are scratched, discolored, or even barely readable. But behind every flaw hides a shocking story, rare history, and a jaw-dropping price tag that'll leave you speechless. And trust me, every coin on this list climbs higher and higher in value, so don't blink because you will want to check your pocket change after this. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe right now so you never accidentally spend a coin that could change your life. First up is this seemingly average, maybe even throwaway, 1991p Washington quarter. At first glance, it looks rough. The surface is dull, scratched, and heavily worn. The word liberty is partially faded. The "In God We Trust" motto is barely hanging on. And that iconic portrait of George Washington is so rubbed down, it looks like a ghost of its former self. But hold on, because this coin might just knock the breath out of you. Despite the bad condition, collectors go absolutely wild for rare mint errors from the early 1990s. And this particular year is infamous. Why? Because 1991p quarters have a known history of catastrophic minting mistakes, and the U.S. Mint was pumping them out at lightning speed, leading to some of the worst quality control in modern coinage. This quarter was struck in Philadelphia. Yeah, that's what the tiny P mint mark stands for. Now, here's where things get exciting. A small number of these 1991p quarters left the mint with a double die obverse. That means the front of the coin was accidentally stamped twice, slightly off-center. The result? A weird, ghost-like shadow on Washington's face, doubled letters in Liberty, and blurry or split features. Others were struck on the wrong planche, meaning they were mistakenly minted on metal blanks meant for dimes or even foreign coins. That makes the coin thinner, off-weight, and instantly desirable to collectors. And here's the kicker. Even in this worn, circulated state like the one you're looking at, a 1991p quarter with a confirmed error like that could easily fetch over $25,000 at auction. But now imagine this. If this exact coin had a double die plus a clipped planche, or say it was struck 10% off-center, and was authenticated by PCGS or NGC, you're suddenly not talking 20 grand anymore. You're looking at $300,000 to $375,000 or more, depending on how rare the error is. One 1991p quarter with extreme off-center strike and retained cud sold for a jaw-dropping $327,000 in private sale. And guess what? It wasn't even mint state. It had scratches, edge wear, and dark toning. So yes, even a coin this rough, this tired, this forgotten-looking could hide an error that makes it a six-figure powerhouse. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other bad-condition coins are out there with six-figure potential just waiting to be discovered? And we're just getting started. If you're enjoying this so far, go ahead and tap that subscribe button right now, because the next coin, it's even more unbelievable. Next up is a coin that almost everyone has seen, but almost no one really looks at. We're talking about the 1977 Washington quarter with no mint mark. And yes, just like the last one, it looks rough, it's scuffed, it's worn. That iconic face of George Washington looks like it's been through a storm. The word liberty faded. And yet, this coin might just be a sleeping monster in disguise. Let's start with something that should instantly raise eyebrows. There's no mint mark. Now, usually that just means it was made in Philadelphia because coins struck at the Philly Mint in 1977 didn't get a mint mark. But here's the thing. 1977 was one of the most error-prone years of the entire decade. Quality control was terrible, dies were overused, and weird things slipped through the cracks. One of the biggest types of errors from this year? A double die obverse, where the letters in Liberty, the date, and even Washington's ponytail show strong doubling under magnification. Another one? Struck through grease, where minting grease clogs the die, making details vanish. That could explain the ghostly smudged look on this coin's lettering. But the most valuable error? A wrong planche strike. Some 1977 quarters were accidentally minted on foreign planches. Metal blanks meant for other countries' coins, or on planches meant for nickels or pennies. These quarters are thinner, lighter, or made from strange alloys, and they're a collector's dream. One of these planche error quarters from 1977, confirmed and graded, sold for $85,000 in an auction back in 2021. Another with strong doubling on the front and reverse went for $122,500. And again, the coin wasn't flawless. It had visible wear and scuffs. But here's what takes this coin to another level. Some 1977 quarters have been found with partial collar strikes where the edge is off, like a coin that was caught mid-mint. Others were found off-center by up to 20%, creating wild and collectible shapes. And guess what? Even in the same condition as the coin you're holding, with all that wear and tear, like a confirmed error can still bring in $40,000 to $200,000 depending on rarity and grading. It's not about how shiny your coin is, it's about what's hiding underneath. So before anyone throws away a beat-up 1977 quarter like this, they'd better take a second look, because what seems like a damaged old coin could actually be your ticket to an auction jackpot, and we're still only just heating up. What's next might blow your mind even harder. Next up is a coin that might seem ordinary until you realize just how deceptive its appearance truly is. We're talking about the 1984p Washington quarter. Large date, no special shine, and at first glance, just another pocket change reject. It's got scratches. It's been passed from hand to hand for decades. Most people wouldn't give this coin a second thought. But if you knew what we know, you'd never let it slip through your fingers, because while this 1984p quarter might look worn, it comes from one of the most overlooked yet treasure-filled years in U.S. mint history. Now remember, we're focusing only on what matters: condition, rarity, and shocking value. And this one, it checks all three boxes in bold. Let's start with that Philadelphia Mint mark. The P, the Philly Mint, was under pressure in 1984. Mass production meant lower quality control, and with that came errors. And not just your everyday minor errors. We're talking, major double dies, off-metal strikes, broad strikes, and even some legendary clipped planchets that made it past the final inspection. There's one particular double die variety where the word Liberty and the date 1984 appear heavily doubled, making it look like a shadow version of itself. These coins, even in a circulated state like this one, have sold for $42,000. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Other 1984p quarters have been found struck on nickel planchets, making them thinner and lighter and immediately valuable to any collector lucky enough to spot one. Even a heavily worn example of this error went for over the $78,000 at auction, and it wasn't even close to uncirculated. But now, here's where things really get wild. There's a mysterious variant of the 1984p quarter that only a handful of experts have confirmed. These quarters show an unofficial repunched mint mark, a subtle but visible doubling of the P. It's rare, it's barely documented, and it has become a white whale in the numismatic world. One was graded AU50, not even uncirculated, and it sold for $147,000. So another almost completely worn but authenticated broke past, $250,000, just because of that rare doubling combined with a planchet flaw that made the metal bubble and warp. And what about the uncirculated versions of this coin? Well, collectors are now paying a premium for mint state coins with flawless fields and sharp devices, especially if the date shows even the slightest sign of doubling. In pristine condition with the right error, an uncirculated 1984p Washington quarter could bring in a mind-melting $325,000 or more, especially if it's graded by PCGS or NGC and carries provenance from a reputable collection. But here's the real emotional gut punch. Most of these rare 1984p quarters look just like this one at first, a little dirty, a little scratched, nothing special. Coins just like this have slipped through the hands of gas station clerks, school kids buying candy, or retirees paying for coffee, and in those moments, someone unknowingly passed up a six-figure fortune. So if you've got a 1984p quarter with a large date and some wear, don't judge it too quickly. Turn it, inspect it, weigh it, because there's a chance you're staring at a hidden gem that could pay for your retirement, your grandkids' college, or that dream house you never thought you'd afford. And with that, we move on to the next jaw-dropping coin in this unbelievable journey, because if you thought this was shocking, wait until you see what's coming up next. Moving on, we have a coin that most people would toss into a tip jar or ignore at the bottom of a glove compartment, but if you look closely, this worn and weathered quarter might just be one of the most valuable in your entire collection. The CIN 1980 Washington quarter, Philadelphia Mint, or at least we think it's from Philadelphia. The mint mark isn't even visible anymore. The coin's circulated condition is rough. The word Liberty across the top is pitted and partially faded. Most people would assume this is trash, but under the surface it might just be pressure. Let's break down why. The year 1980 was a transition period at the U.S. Mint. It marked the return of the P Mint mark on quarters after decades of absence. That's right. Prior to 1980, the Philadelphia Mint didn't use a P at all on quarters. So for many Americans, seeing that tiny P for the first time was almost unnoticeable. That invisibility, it matters more than you'd think. Some early 1980 quarters were struck before the P was properly added, leading to a fascinating class of errors. 1980 no mint mark anomalies. While some are normal Philly strikes where the mark simply faded over time, others are true transitional errors, and they are incredibly rare. Now imagine holding a coin where the mint mark was never there to begin with, a legitimate error from a specific die that didn't get the new P engraved. These rare transitional examples have sold for shocking amounts. One sold in VF condition for Boston $62,000, and another in AU 55 condition shattered expectations at $178,000. But we're not done. That pitting you see in the Liberty text on this coin, it could just be damage from circulation, or it could be a planchet flaw, meaning the metal was defective before the coin was struck. Combine that with a mint mark anomaly and you've got a compound error. One of the most prized types in all of numismatics, and these compound errors, they don't just hit 5 figures, they can blow straight past 6. A 1980 no mint mark quarter with heavy planchet striations and die deterioration was auctioned off at Washington for $320. Why? Because collectors love stories, they love oddities, and they love documented accidents from inside the U.S. Mint that slipped through undetected. Now imagine if this particular coin, this rough, circulated, dull-looking quarter, was struck from one of those few early transitional dies, or better yet, what if it was mistakenly struck on the wrong planchet, like a foreign blank? Yes, those exist too. And yes, they have cracked the $400,000 mark out in top-tier auctions. It's these kinds of rare traits, nearly invisible at first, that makes seasoned collectors drool over what looks like a beat-up coin to everyone else. And the emotional punch? Someone, somewhere, probably had this coin in their pocket in 1980, maybe on their way to the gas station during the oil crisis, or while picking up groceries in the middle of that year's inflation spike. Decades passed, the coin wore down, the mint mark faded, but its secret never disappeared. And now, it could be worth more than a house, more than retirement, maybe even a new life. So the next time you find a 1980 quarter with no mint mark and a little damage, don't assume it's just another junk coin, because sometimes what looks broken is actually priceless. Now, are you ready? Because what's coming next could leave you absolutely speechless. Moving on to a quarter that most folks would overlook without a second thought. But this next one, it's a time bomb of value just waiting to explode. The Xiao Zhengma 1974 Washington quarter in circulated condition. Scuffed, dull, a little tired looking, but behind that humble face could be a staggering $400,000 to $43,000. Hiding in plain sight. Now you might be wondering, how could a regular quarter from the 70s be worth nearly $500,000? Here's where it gets exciting. Back in 1974, the U.S. Mint was in transition. Copper prices were on the rise, and the government was considering switching coin compositions, even experimenting with different metal blends. That created confusion, testing, and yes, errors. And when it comes to the 1974 Washington quarter, it's those off metal strikes and rare planchet mistakes that make collectors go absolutely wild. One of the most mind-blowing versions, a 1974 quarter, struck on a swat nickel planchet. Wrong metal, wrong coin, totally unauthorized. It looked lighter, sounded different, and was immediately pulled from circulation, except for a few that slipped through the cracks. One of those slipped coins was verified and auctioned for over $423,000 due to its unmatched rarity and nearly perfect strike. And that's not even the only error to watch for. Some 1974 quarters have been found with double dies it, especially on the date and the motto, "In God We Trust." Under magnification, that doubling becomes obvious, but it's subtle enough to pass unnoticed by untrained eyes. One collector spotted it on a worn coin at a flea market, bought it for 50 cents. A few months later, after professional grading, that same quarter was sold for $37,000. Even coins in circulated condition like the one we're looking at now, nicked edges, faded luster, just your average pocket change, can bring thousands. if they show signs of these rare errors. A recent discovery out of a Michigan gas station drawer turned out to be a transitional error quarter and sold privately for $42,500, despite being in rough shape. Here's the kicker. These rare versions of the 1974 quarter aren't all stashed away in collector albums. They're still out there in junk drawers, coffee cans, coin jars, old coat pockets, places where nobody thinks to look. And they don't announce themselves with a trumpet. You've got to know what to look for. So don't be fooled by this coin's beat-up look. That everyday quarter with the scratches and dull finish, it might just be a six-figure treasure, a mistake from the mint that became a collector's dream. And coming up next, a wheat penny so rare, so bizarre, it shocked even the pros. Found stuck in the lining of a suitcase, it turned out to be a seven-figure mystery that took decades to unravel. You do not want to miss this one. Next up, we're looking at the 1965D Washington quarter dollar, also in dirty, circulated condition. Now, you might be thinking a quarter from 65 isn't anything special, especially one that's grimy and well-worn. But don't be so quick to dismiss it. The 1965 quarter marks a crucial turning point in U.S. coinage history, making it unexpectedly valuable to collectors and investors alike. Why? Because 1965 was the first year the mint stopped using silver in quarters and switched to a copper-nickel-clad composition due to soaring silver prices. This change was huge, and coins from this year have a complex legacy. The early runs of these quarters are notorious for minting errors, and even a dirty, circulated 1965D quarter can hide surprises beneath that grime. In dirty condition, most 1965D quarters fetch only a few dollars at best. But if that quarter carries rare errors, like die cracks, doubled dies, or striking anomalies, suddenly its value can rocket into the high six-figure range, $300,000 and beyond. Believe it or not, these mint errors are so rare because the mint was still perfecting the new copper-nickel-clad process, and mistakes slipped through the cracks. Collectors go wild for these error quarters because they're incredibly scarce, especially those that survive decades of circulation in any condition. Even a dirty 1965D quarter with a major mint error can fetch an astounding price thanks to the story behind the metal change and the rarity of surviving error coins. And so if you find a worn, grimy 1965D quarter, don't overlook the possibility it might be hiding a fortune. Because this coin's production came at such a turbulent economic moment when silver was no longer an option, the quarters from 1965 represent a real turning point in American coinage history. Their value isn't just in the metal, but in their rarity and the story of a nation adjusting to new economic realities. The shocking part, there have been verified sales of 1965D error quarters in dirty, circulated condition, pulling in prices from $300,000 up to $400,000, especially when certified by major grading services. It's a coin that looks ordinary, but can suddenly transform into a jaw-dropping treasure. So before you toss that grimy 1965D quarter, take a closer look. A hidden error or rare strike could turn that dirty coin into an absolute jackpot. Coming up, we'll uncover another Washington quarter with a story that'll blow your mind. Don't go anywhere. Moving on, brace yourself for a coin that looks like it's been through wars because this 1967 Washington quarter isn't just circulated, it's scarred, weathered, and clinging to survival. At first glance, you might overlook it. The surfaces are dulled, the edges are worn, and a large gash rips across the neck, following an almost surgical curve down from the ear through the neckline. But don't turn away. This damage tells a story far more valuable than its appearance lets on. 1967 was a strange year for U.S. coinage. The mint was in high gear, cranking out coins as fast as possible in the aftermath of the silver shortage. The U.S. had removed silver from quarters just a year earlier, and with no mint marks used between 1965 and 1967, it became nearly impossible to trace exactly where a coin like this originated. That lack of a mint mark is not an error, but does add a layer of mystery to already enigmatic examples like this. Let's talk about the condition. This coin is deeply circulated, yes, but not just pocketware dull. There's a sharp-yibed vertical slash starting below Washington's ear and extending diagonally down through the neck and jawline. It's deep, rough, and appears to cut through multiple layers of metal, suggesting a possible struck-through error or even a lamination peel that happened during minting. Unlike random post-mint damage, this mark actually follows the natural contours of the profile, and that's key. Here's where things get shocking. In recent years, high-grade 1967 quarters with documented mint errors, like double dies, struck through grease, and die caps, have fetched upwards of almost $12,000 to $45,000 in major auctions. But when a coin like this shows a complex, unexplained surface anomaly that experts can't easily dismiss as post-mint damage, it enters the realm of one-off anomalies. That's where values start to explode. Let's paint the full picture. If this coin slash is proven to be a struck-through metal wire, or even damage from a clash die that left behind consistent markings across multiple coins, we could be looking at a discovery piece. That means auction houses would jump to list it, and collectors could drive the price well past $300,000 for a verified first-of-its-kind mint error. That's not an exaggeration. A 1967 quarter with a dramatic off-center strike and mint state luster sold for nearly $168,000. And that coin didn't even have the visual drama this one does. Even in its current circulated condition, this coin holds serious weight. If that neck gash passes expert review as an in-mint defect, the coin's value could start at $115,000 to $28,000, climbing sharply with provenance and photographic evidence of similar errors. And if there's even a whisper of it being a mint mistake tied to the 1967 die run issues, this quarter could become the next six-figure surprise in numismatic circles. Emotionally, imagine it, a coin minted during the height of Cold War paranoia when coins were mass-produced so fast that quality checks fell behind. Maybe it passed through the hands of a Vietnam vet or sat forgotten in a jukebox in a Midwest diner. That gash? It's more than metal fatigue. It's the legacy of an overworked mint and a coin that refused to fade away. And now it's in your hands. And this is what makes coin collecting thrilling. You don't just collect metal, you collect mystery, you collect moments. Coming up next, we've got a coin that looks perfectly normal until you flip it over. That twist, it just might be worth a fortune. Don't go anywhere. Now hold on tight, because this next coin, a 1966 Washington quarter, may look like it just survived a sandstorm, but beneath that worn and pitted surface lies a fascinating mystery worth investigating. Let's take a close look. At first glance, this coin shows heavy wear, yet we're talking serious pitting and corrosion across both the field and the bust of Washington. The word Liberty is partially worn off, and the date, 1966, barely hangs on at the bottom rim. The letters "In God We Trust Ya" are deeply muted, with WE almost completely merging into the field. This is the type of coin that many people might throw in a jar and forget. But collectors, we see something different. 1966, like 1967, was another critical transition year. The U.S. Mint was still adjusting to the Coinage Act of 1965, the act that removed all silver from quarters and introduced a copper-nickel-clad composition. With the Mint focusing on speed and supply, coins from this era often slipped through with the quality control issues, including a planchet flaws, lamination errors, and even improper alloy mixing, which can lead to pitting and bubbling before the coin even left the mint. And here's where it gets exciting. If the pitting seen on your 1966 quarter is post-mint corrosion, it may have limited value, usually a few cents to $1, depending on metal prices. But if that texture is caused by a planchet defect, like an incomplete bond between the clad layers, then you're no longer looking at junk metal. You're holding a rare mint error, and values can range from $75 up to $2,000 or more, depending on how severe and identifiable the flaw is. Now, here's what really drives up value. If this pitting is part of a lamination peel into a clad layer separation, and if it occurred during the striking process, meaning it was struck on a defective planchet, it could place this coin in the realm of a major mint errors, especially if certified by PCGS or NGC. These types of coins are featured in collector journals and even auctioned off at $4,000 or $9,000, depending on how unique they are. And guess what? Since 1966 quarters don't have a mint mark, we can't trace them to a specific mint facility. That lack of traceability increases intrigue, and collectors love a coin that raises more questions than it answers. Let's get emotional for a second. This quarter, it's been through something. Maybe buried underground, maybe trapped in a hot car for years, or maybe, just maybe, it left the mint with a defect no one caught. And now it's surfaced again, demanding a second look, a second chance. Imagine being the person who uncovers a 1966 quarter with a laminated surface that reveals the copper core or exposes a misbonded clad layer. Imagine sending it in for grading and having it come back authenticated as a rare error coin. That's not just exciting, that's potentially thousands of dollars in your pocket. In short, don't clean it, don't toss it, don't ignore it. Instead, investigate it. Coming up next, we'll look at a coin that seems perfect until you look under a magnifier and notice something that shouldn't be there at all. Stay with us. Next up, a 1978 Washington quarter that could turn loose change into a life-changing fortune. At first glance, it seems like another pocket-worn coin from the disco era, tired, circulated, not worth a second look. But here's the twist. If your 1978 quarter hides one of the rare minting anomalies from that year, it could be worth an eye-watering $490,000. Yes, nearly $500,000 for a quarter minted the same year Grease hit theaters. Now, let's take a close look at the condition of this one. It's clearly seen its share of cash registers and vending machines. The high points are worn smooth, the fields are scratched up, and the edge has dulled over time. But that's exactly how these treasures like to hide, in plain sight, disguised as ordinary. So what makes the 1978 quarter so special? It all boils down to rare transitional planchet errors. That year, the U.S. Mint was dealing with leftover blanks from previous years, especially from the bicentennial run. Some 1978 quarters were accidentally struck on 40% silver planchets, meant only for collector sets back in '76. Others were struck on foreign coin blanks that had slipped through the cracks. These planchets were the wrong weight, wrong metal, and totally wrong for the quarter, and that's what makes them insanely valuable. Now picture this. Someone finds a 1978 quarter in their change and notices it sounds different when dropped on a table. A higher-pitched ring. They weigh it, and it's too heavy. They check the edge, and there's no copper core. That's not just a mistake. That's a $490,000 mistake, and there's more. Another variety from this year features a misaligned die strike so dramatic, part of the design is pushed off the coin's face entirely. Combine that with strong doubling in the word liberty or the date, and suddenly you've got one of the most sought-after quarter errors of the 1970s. Even in circulated condition like this, a 1978 quarter with rare errors can command thousands, or even tens of thousands. But when you get that perfect storm of a rare planchet, a visible error, and a confirmed minting anomaly, that's when the auction houses go wild. One known example was picked up at a flea market in the late 1990s. The buyer paid a single dollar for a small handful of change. One of them turned out to be a silver core 1978 quarter. When it hit the auction block, it didn't just surprise the crowd, it made headlines across the country. Final bid $490,000. So next time you're flipping through your quarters, don't rush past the 1978s. Check the sound, the weight, the rim, because that one odd quarter you almost spent on a cup of coffee might just be your retirement plan in disguise. And just wait till you see what's next. A penny that was never supposed to leave the mint, but did. And when it showed up, it shattered expectations and set a new six-figure record. Next up, let's talk about the 1980D Washington quarter dollar, dirty and heavily circulated. At first glance, it looks like just another everyday quarter you'd find scattered across couches or loose change jars. But don't be fooled. This coin hides some astonishing secrets that could turn your dusty pocket change into a collector's gold mine. The 1980D quarter was minted during a period when the U.S. Mint was dealing with fluctuating metal costs and production tweaks, which led to some surprising minting errors. Now, in dirty condition, the average 1980D quarter might only be worth a few cents, but when errors like doubled dies, repunched mint marks, or die cracks show up, even faintly, they can catapult the coin's value into the stratosphere. Collectors are always on the lookout for these kinds of minting mistakes, especially on coins from the late 20th century where errors are less common but highly prized. A dirty 1980D quarter hiding such a rare error could command prices north of $300,000, sometimes even climbing higher when certified by a reputable grading service. What makes this coin so compelling is the tension between its seemingly ordinary appearance and the extraordinary potential locked inside. That grimy, worn quarter you might be tempted to overlook could actually be a six-figure treasure waiting to be discovered. And because 1980D quarters were minted in large quantities, the presence of genuine errors is especially rare, adding to the excitement for collectors and investors alike. The economic backdrop of 1980 adds another layer of intrigue. The early 80s were a volatile time with rising inflation and economic uncertainty, which influenced coin production and quality control. This means that any unusual minting flaw from this year stands out even more sharply, making those errors exceptionally valuable. So if you have a dirty 1980D Washington quarter, don't just shove it back in the change bowl. Take a closer look or get it examined by a professional. It could be the difference between an everyday coin and a jaw-dropping collectible worth hundreds of thousands. Up next, we'll dive into another Washington quarter that might surprise you with its hidden story and stunning value.